Hey there, hope you're doing good. Today I'll talk about why every software team should consider continuous deployment. First, let's understand what continuous deployment is. Continuous deployment is a system where you have a new release of your software every day, every hour. As work keeps getting done, each unit of work, when it is done, it goes live immediately, rather than having a fixed launch schedule like every week or every month or based on versions, right? So each commit, when it is committed to git, when it is code reviewed, if you have automated tests like sonar cube, they'll run your end-to-end tests, unit tests, all these run. If all these passes, it will go live to production immediately. It's automated, it's not manual, right? No one clicks a button saying now I want to launch. And when I say goes to production, it can also be a percentage. You can also do continuous deployment to a canary server that receives 1% of your traffic. That's also fine. In fact, if you think deploying to 100% is too risky and you want to start with a canary, fine, do that. That's still 100 times better than not doing continuous deployment at all, out of fear or conservatism. And this conservatism should be combated. We all have a natural tendency to be careful, but you should not sacrifice speed and agility and efficiency for it. Even if there are occasional problems, as there will be with continuous deployment. It's a price worth paying. Because if you give up agility, you'll never get it back. Your company will only get slower and more bureaucratic and inefficient and less attractive to smart engineers as time goes by, not more. So, this slide into bureaucracy should be fought, even if it has a price, such as occasional bugs. So, let's discuss why you should consider continuous deployment. The first reason is that users benefit faster. Suppose you have a weekly launch cycle instead of using continuous deployment. You launch every Monday morning, let's say. Now, suppose a developer completed a feature Monday afternoon. You don't want to wait for a whole week. You want to launch immediately so that users benefit from this feature. Because you're building this feature for that reason, right? It has value to users. It's no different from buying a laptop on Amazon. You would like to get it today instead of next week, wouldn't you? Because that laptop has some value to you. That's why you're buying. Similarly, the feature has some value. That's why you built it in the first place. And if not, you shouldn't have built it. So you want to get that benefit as soon as possible. The second reason is you can launch, get data from production, and make further decisions based on that. You can do exploratory work. Sometimes you can't be sure if a fix you made fixes the problem. Or you may be optimizing a funnel, maybe the sign up or the first run or whatever it may be, right? If that takes 50 small improvements and each of them takes a week, if you do weekly launches, that's 50 weeks or a year. With continuous deployment, you can get it done in weeks. You need to speed up iterations in software development, in product development. Faster iterations lead to a better product. Slower iterations, sometimes people will not even bother to do something if it is going to be such a painful task, long drawn out task. People will become more conservative, they'll stop caring, they'll do the minimum needed. You need to lower the bar to experimentation. Only then you will have experimentation and innovation and improvement. Moving on, the next benefit of continuous deployment is that if something goes wrong, you know immediately. And it's easier to correlate with the root cause, the commit that introduced the problem. If you don't have continuous deployment and you wait a week, let's say, to launch, you bundle up maybe dozens of commits into one release and something goes wrong, it's harder to find out which of them caused the problem. And it's more risky that way, actually. Every time you do a weekly launch, there is a possibility of things going wrong, a higher possibility than with continuous deployment. The other benefit of continuous deployment is morale. An engineer who builds a feature would be happy if he sees it go live immediately. When I make a YouTube video like this one, I am happy when it goes live immediately, right? This is a soft thing, it's an emotional thing. You can, if you argue logically against this, saying what will go wrong if you wait a week? No, it's about morale, it's about emotion. If you want to, like, let's say, eat an ice cream, and I tell you to wait a week. Now, if you ask what will go wrong, that's like missing the point, right? You are trying to discuss something emotional by applying logic, right? Motivation, joy, these things are all emotional. You can't argue with human nature. So people will feel happy. I mean, if you have the right people in your team who are not motivated only by money or job title or building a good CV for their next gig, unless you have people motivated only by this, if you have builders, people who wake up every day to build, then continuous deployment increases morale, which in turn makes people do more and the company achieve more and create an environment of an upbeat environment. Moving on, continuous deployment enforces a discipline of regular launches. Sometimes teams go a long time between releases, which is not a good practice. You should do weekly. But then the same reason that applies to weekly also applies to instant. Moving on, the next benefit of continuous deployment is that it drives improvement. When you find a bug in production, you write an end-to-end test to prevent that from happening again. This ensures that you're not wasting time fixing the same bug multiple times. And end-to-end tests are preferable to unit tests because unit tests test only each module separately, whereas many bugs occur in the interfaces between modules. If your engine and your brakes work well, that doesn't mean your car works well. You need to test the car as a whole. And end-to-end tests also ensures that users don't see breakage, whereas unit tests can't ensure that. And ultimately, we are here for the users, right? The reason we are writing code is for the users. When you have these tests, it also gives you the confidence to move fast. Refactoring becomes low risk because the tests will catch mistakes. And if you have a test that tests, let's say, 40 classes, that's a very high ROI test. Because with one test, you're catching breakages in any of these 40 classes. Testing also makes it easy for newcomers to make changes, knowing the tests will help them. So, with continuous deployment, whenever you have a problem in production, write a test. Write an end-to-end test. When I was working on Google Sheets, I was working on printing. So when you print a spreadsheet, it gets converted to a PDF file, which is then sent to the printer. So my job was to convert it to a PDF file. And I created a directory full of spreadsheets of different kinds. And I would run these tests end to end, invoking the entire code path. Then take the PDF file that was generated, put it through a PDF parser, and check things. For example, if a spreadsheet has two sheets, and the first contains a list of animal names, and the second contains a list of country names, I would print it, then read the PDF, assert that the PDF has two pages, assert that the first page has dog in it, and the second page has India in it. And then Google Sheets had a feature which is a hidden tab within a spreadsheet. So in this example, if I hide the second tab, the list of countries, I created a second spreadsheet with a hidden tab. In this case, I would assert that the name India doesn't occur anywhere in the PDF file because hidden sheets should not be printed. I would have a spreadsheet that has a maximum number of rows allowed in Google Sheets, another with the maximum number of columns, another with the maximum number of cells, another with formulae. So I would have in the first cell the value 10. In the second cell, it would be equal to 2 into A1. So it will be 20. And then I would assert that the PDF file contains the number 20. This ensures that the formulas are being evaluated before printing. So these are all end-to-end tests, right? There's a class for each of these. Let's say there's a formula evaluator. I didn't write a formula evaluator test. I wrote an end-to-end test. So write an end-to-end test. So continuous deployment involves a commitment for continuous improvement, which will again help you go faster. It's not about being very thorough and very slow, extremely slow, because that will cause you to lose in the market to other players. That's not what we are talking about. We are talking about building tests to help you go fast. If you'd like me to help your company with these processes and efficiency and productivity and so on, my consulting link is in the description.